We've all seen the headlines. SpaceX says a launch costs $67 million. NASA says the SLS costs $2 billion, but those are just sticker prices. That's like saying a car costs $20,000, forgetting about insurance, gas, repairs, and the garage you built to park it in. The reality of spaceflight is much more expensive. When you press the launch button, you aren't just lighting a candle, you are burning a pile of cash so high it would reach the stratosphere. From the army of engineers who check a single bolt to the cost of scrubbing a launch because of a single cloud in the sky, today we are going to audit the space industry. We will find out why getting to orbit is still the most expensive shipping service in the universe. Let's start with the vehicle itself. A rocket is essentially a skyscraper filled with explosives. For a legacy rocket like the Atlas V or the Delta IV Heavy, the hardware alone costs between $150 million and $350 million. Why? Because for decades, the business model was use it once and throw it away. Imagine flying a Boeing 747 from New York to London and then crashing it into the ocean. That was the standard operating procedure. Even with SpaceX reusing boosters, the second stage, the top part, is still thrown away every time. That's $10 to $15 million of hardware burning up in the atmosphere on every single flight. The engines alone, like the RS-25 used on the SLS, cost $100 million each, and the SLS uses 4 of them. That's $400 million just for the engines, which are destroyed 8 minutes after liftoff. A rocket doesn't launch itself. Behind every launch, there is a standing army. For a major NASA launch, there are thousands of people involved: engineers, trajectory analysts, weather experts, safety officers. Even when the rocket is sitting in a warehouse, you have to pay these people. This is called fixed costs. If you launch once a year, that one launch has to cover the salaries of thousands of people for 365 days. This is why the space shuttle was so expensive. It cost $1.5 billion per flight, not because the fuel was expensive, but because NASA had to pay an army of 20,000 contractors just to keep the lights on. You can't launch a rocket from a parking lot, you need a launch pad, and a launch pad is a multi-billion-dollar facility. Take Launch Complex 39B at Kennedy Space Center. It has massive lightning towers, a sound suppression system that dumps 400,000 gallons of water in seconds, and storage tanks for liquid hydrogen and oxygen. Maintaining this infrastructure in this salty, humid Florida air is a nightmare. Rust never sleeps. The maintenance bill for the ground systems alone runs into the hundreds of millions of dollars per year. Every launch ticket includes a facility fee that covers the cost of not letting the launch tower rust into the ocean. Here's the irony. The fuel, the fire, the smoke, the noise is actually the cheapest part of the equation. A Falcon 9 holds about $200,000 too. $300,000 worth of kerosene, RP1, and liquid oxygen. That is less than 0.5% of the launch price. Even the massive SLS, which holds 700,000 gallons of liquid hydrogen and oxygen, only spends a few $1,000,000 on propellant. In the space business, energy is cheap. It's the control of that energy that costs billions. You're paying for the tank, not the gas. You can't just shoot a rocket whenever you want, you have to rent the sky. The Eastern Range, Cape Canaveral, is controlled by the U.S. Space Force. For every launch, they have to clear the airspace of planes and the ocean of boats. They use massive tracking radars, telemetry antennas, and self-destruct systems to ensure the rocket doesn't accidentally hit Disney World. SpaceX and ULA have to pay for this support. Clearing the range, staffing the tracking stations, and securing the safety zone costs huge money. If a stray cruise ship wanders into the exclusion zone, which happens, the launch is scrubbed and millions of dollars are wasted instantly. Spaceflight is risky, rockets explode. If you are launching a $500 million satellite, you need insurance. Space insurance premiums are some of the highest in the world. Depending on the reliability of the rocket, insurance can cost 5% to 15% of the total mission value. If your satellite costs $200 million, you might pay a $30 million insurance premium just for the 10-minute ride to orbit. That check is written before the engines even light up. It's a gambling bet where the insurance company hopes gravity wins and you hope physics wins. Scrub. The word every flight director hates. Maybe a valve stuck. Maybe the wind is too high. Maybe a sensor glitched. When a launch is scrubbed, you don't just try again in 5 minutes. You often have to wait 24 or 48 hours. You have to pay the entire launch team overtime. You have to boil off and replenish the cryogenic fuel, which evaporates. You have to keep the range clear. A single scrub can cost anywhere from $500,000 to $1.5 million per day. If a rocket sits on the pad for a week of delays, the profit margin for that mission evaporates completely. You don't just throw a satellite in the trunk. Payload integration is a process that takes months. Engineers have to ensure the satellite can survive the violent shaking of the launch. They have to design custom adapters. They have to test everything in vacuum chambers and acoustic chambers. This preparation phase costs millions. If the satellite doesn't fit perfectly, or if the electrical connections don't match, the mission fails. The adapter, the metal ring that connects the satellite to the rocket, can cost more than a luxury house. Let's look at the scoreboard. SpaceX Falcon 9, the advertised price is approximately $67 million. But for the US military, who require extra security and assurance, the price is often $90 to $100 million. NASA SLS Artemis. The Inspector General estimates the cost per launch is $4.1 billion. That is $4.1 billion for one flight. That means every second of the 8-minute launch costs $8.5 million. By the time you blink, the SLS just burned your lifetime earnings. ULA Delta IV Heavy, about $350 million per launch. The price gap is massive, but even the cheap option is a fortune. Here's the final fact. Why is it so expensive? Because gravity is a greedy landlord. To get to orbit, you have to travel at 17,500 miles per hour. The energy required to do that is immense. The engineering required to keep the machine from tearing itself apart is on the edge of what is physically possible. We are fighting the fundamental laws of physics, and physics charges a high tax. Every dollar spent is a dollar spent fighting the Earth's desire to pull you back down. Space is open for business, but the cover charge is high. Whether it's a billionaire's private rocket or a government mega project, the cost of leaving this planet is the ultimate barrier. But when you consider that satellites run our GPS, our internet, and our weather forecasts, maybe that $100 million explosion is the best investment we make. Subscribe if you want to know the real price of the future.